So this discussion is particularly relevant, and we touched on nuclear quite a bit in the earlier conversation. So the horrible events in Ukraine and the terrible attack on Ukraine by Russia has reemphasized the importance of pursuing both decarbonization, which this conference is really focused on, but at the same time, doing that in tandem with pursuing energy security. And nuclear actually does both absolutely, perfectly well. No, nuclear will not be the only energy source that we'll need to solve all of our problems in the next several decades, but we can't reach net zero. We cannot be energy secure without nuclear, and particularly some of the newer nuclear technologies that are being introduced. The horrible events in Ukraine and then the pursuing energy crisis that actually started, as was mentioned, before the war, also remind us about some of the basic things that we've forgotten, such as the importance of energy affordability and accessibility. And nuclear also can provide that as well. The importance of reliable baseload power, too. So all of these things our fantastic panelists will discuss here, and it is my pleasure to introduce them. We have Anna Birchall, who is a special envoy for strategic and international affairs at Nuclearelectrica. We have Serdar Çetinkaya, who is the Deputy Commercial Attache at the Energy and Mining at the U.S. Embassy in Ankara. And virtually, Andre, thank you for joining us virtually, Andre Pinar, who is the Chief Executive and founder of C5 Capital. And, really appreciate having you here. We'll just jump right into it. I want to start off with the role of governments, especially as we talk about bringing these newer technologies, such as SMRs, online. Just to pick on Romania a little bit, because there's been some exciting developments with NuScale. U.S. Trade and Development Agency already dedicated 1.2 million grant towards that. Then recently, President Biden announced another grant to support that, 14 million. So financial support is just kind of one piece. And I'm just using this because, we are honored to have you on the panel. I'm using this as an example. U.S. is not the only country to support it financially. So I'm going to go one by one, and we'll start off with you, Anna. But what is the role of government in supporting these new technologies, and why is it so important?
Firstly, what a great joy it is to be back in Istanbul. Thank you so much for Atlantic Council for bringing us again together in Istanbul, and a huge thank you for our hosts who always look after us so graciously and make us feel so welcome. Look, you touch, and the previous panel touched several things, and with your permission, if I could just share with you some thoughts, including our experience from Romania, and touch on the SMRs and the new technologies, and maybe towards the end, if I could share, not abusing your time, but some lessons and recommendations, humble recommendations from our experience dealing with nuclear for many years, because I have to start by saying that is with great joy and pride that Romania is among the very few countries, actually the only one in our region, Central Eastern Europe, who choose since 1960 to go with the North American technology, with the CANDU technology, Canadian technology, even though imagine at that time how much pressure was from the Russia. So I want to say that the current global geopolitical context has underlined more than ever the importance of a resilience, decarbonized and independent energy system. And that's important from not just the policymaker, touching on what you were saying, Olga, from the government point of view, but I think it's so important for each and all of us in our societies. Security of energy supply, sustainability, and of course affordability prices for the population and industry are pressing matters for the governments, and not just at the EU level, but all over the world. And as I said, in Romania, we have realized early on the implications of over-reliance on an external supplier, and have taken strategic decisions to ensure a diversified energy mix. And in the nuclear field, as I said, we were going with the CANDU technology very early on, but recently, as recent as 2018, and here Ana Palacio was touching upon the battles that we were having at that time, I am proud to say that since 2018 and 19 and every single year, but at that time it was not necessarily fashionable, if I may say, to say, you know, in all the discussions on and off the record, hang on a second, watch out, you need to be careful because you are over-relying on one source of energy and take away that energy from Mr. Putin's hands because he's going to use it as a weapon. And guess what? I'm sorry to say that we were right. We wish we were not right, but we were right. Why? Because we understood, including from our own experience in our region. So from that time, Romania took very strategic, very courageous, I should say, but very wise steps in diversifying our sources. We partner with the US companies and you know, it's proving one more time how important it is to choose strategically your partners, your business partners, especially in the strategic fields such as energy. So as we are discussing the accelerating renewable energy projects to deal with the current energy crisis, we do need to have a similar approach to the nuclear projects as well. And I'm pledging to all of you to take that into consideration, including at the EU level. They are both clean energy. We don't need to advocate anymore. This is science. It's not politician talking, it's not the lobbyists talking, it's pure science. And if we want to take, you know, to care and take into consideration and respect the science, this is what we need to consider, that the nuclear projects are clean energy projects, and the nuclear projects, from our point of view, should you know, should be also be envisioned as projects of common interest between several interested states in the EU and abroad, and practically pooling resources to share the benefits. One thought, and I'm not abusing the time, but you know, there is a lot to share on the taxonomy. I read now with just coming to the panel that one EU member state is challenging the taxonomy. Romania has been involved in the taxonomy, and I have to praise the Commission. I don't know, Matthew is in the room. The Commission took a very courageous decision to really push for the taxonomy. We got it done, and you know, the taxonomy is so important for sustainable finance in a clean recognition of the irrepressible role of the nuclear power in a sustainable energy transition. And we really cannot afford to ignore any low carbon energy sources if we are really serious about climate change and energy independence. And at this point, if I may, because I see our EBRD representatives in the room and grateful for helping with this conference, I think you know, will be important, including from financial institutions such as EBRD, to emphasize the adequate and predictable financing framework for the nuclear new build, both large scale and SMRs, because it is important to, you know, including from the deployment of fast deployment of those technologies in the region. So one more thought on our example, and then later on, after we do the rounds, I will share from our experience being first of a kind with partnering with NuScale. So Romania was counting, as I said, on nuclear as part of our energy mix more than 50 years ago. I'm proud to say that we accumulated an amazing know-how, which we would very much put up you know, to help and share with others. And we are having a great track record on 25 years of operational. Nuclearelectrica SNN is operating safely at the highest standards and gaining experience and sharing experience with others who would like, including in the future, for more than 25 years. And, you know, this is a track record. Our units in Cernavoda ranking among the top in the world in this regard. So we are operating 2 CANDU reactors. First being one commission, you know, the first one being commissioned in 1996 and the second one in 2007. We are currently developing 2 additional units on the same site in Cernavoda, which will increase our energy independence. And we are working now to refurbish the unit 1 but likewise, we are very happy to say that in the nuclear field, we do not have any dependency on Russian imports. So since the beginning of our nuclear program, the local industry, and here is a lesson that we could share, our local industry absorb a large share of the technology and manufacturing processes specific to CANDU technologies, and we have deployed our own fuel manufacturing and heavy water facilities alongside with engineering, construction, and services. And to close, practically at the present moment with 2 units, we are ensuring 18 to 20% of our energy needs as a country, and we will go to up to 33% of the commissioning of units 3 and 4, and obviously with the SMRs. So to answer, to wrap for this part, Romania supports both the large-scale reactors as well as the new advanced technologies, and we believe that both have a valuable role to play. One is not competing with each other. Large-scale reactors can ensure clean, affordable baseload energy, while SMRs can provide grid flexibility, non-electric appliance applications such as the heat and the hydrogen, because it was a heavy discussion on the hydrogen. Look for the hydrogen from nuclear, because that's incredibly clean, and again, it's science, it's not talky-talky, and they are both needed to ensure security of supply and decarbonization. And later on, if I may, to just share our great experience in partnering with NuScale, I'm proud to say that we are the first one in the region to really have that partnership, to really be first of a kind, and we took very, very concrete measurements, and it's a great project which we are encouraging everybody in the region. And I always said, for the American companies, especially, look up at this region, who is an amazing region, and it's for you to grab it. And I will end by with something that I wanted to start. I'm very happy to discover that the nuclear. I am new, I have to share with you, I'm nuclear in the field. From my previous hats as Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Justice, obviously I was very heavily involved in the energy projects of Romania, including on the Nord Stream 2 discussions. And I'm happy that Romania was courageous to oppose it at that time. I can tell you when, was the spring of 2019, and weren't easy discussions, but we've done it because it was the right thing to do. But it's very important that the nuclear is not the bow in the room anymore, and everybody is looking at what it is. And again, I'm coming back to what people are saying, more experts in the field. It's science, it's not rocket science. It's really pure science, and everybody should take it into consideration. So I end here, and I look forward to share with our very exciting partnership with NuScale on the SMRs.
Thank you so much, Anna. Really appreciate your remarks, particularly when we're talking about the urgency and time being of the essence as these new projects are being implemented. We will go to Andre next. Andre, the floor is yours.
Olga, thank you. It's a great pleasure to join you from Washington, D.C. to Istanbul this morning, and to join the Atlantic Council for the Regional Clean Energy Conference. I want to agree with Anna's remarks about the importance of nuclear energy for the clean energy transition and for the future. Nuclear energy produces about 25 to 30% of the US's energy needs, and about 50% of the fossil-free fuel for the US economy. And that's very comparable to other countries in the G7, and very comparable to Britain and other countries in the G7, with the exception being France, where the nuclear energy industry produces even a bigger part of France's energy needs. And we are now again at a moment almost like when General Eisenhower made his speech to the United Nations General Assembly in 1953, his famous Atoms for Peace speech, when nuclear energy, innovation and technology are being made available for the energy and the growing energy needs of the developing world. At last year's COP conference in Scotland, the US State Department announced a nuclear futures package to support developing countries to access advanced nuclear innovation. Romania was part of that partnership, so was Brazil, Indonesia, and several other countries. And nuclear energy really offers a solution for the growing energy needs of the developing world. By 2040, it's estimated that about 67% of the world's energy needs will come from the developing world. And nuclear energy provides a solution that's really scalable, part of the clean energy transition, and very reliable and affordable to meet these energy needs. And there's a compelling urgency to find solutions, because today we still have almost 1 billion people without any access to electricity, and about 40% of the world's population, about 3 billion people, who don't have access to clean energy resources for preparing their food. And so there's a great urgency compelled both by the need to combat climate change, but also to alleviate poverty and to meet the needs of the developing world. And nuclear energy can be part of that solution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andre. Thank you so much for reminding us about kind of the importance of cheap, affordable, reliable baseload energy when we talk about economic development, but also even just sustaining the quality of life, right? Not even to, talk about economic growth. I mean, you absolutely need more affordable, accessible energy. So, Serdar, we're going to go to you next.
First of all, I'd like to thank also Atlantic Council and EBRD for organizing this conference. And I think it's an excellent venue to discuss this kind of issues, and it creates a great brainstorming session to find the right way for a country. We talked about diversification and carbon-free power generation, and I think nuclear energy is the solution. It's a reliable, resilient, and emission-free energy. And in the United States, actually, 55% of the total carbon-free electric generation is produced from nuclear energy. In recent years, US government has given importance to development of the small modular reactors. And there are now lots of different types of designs being developed. Anything starting from micro reactors, which are 10 megawatts, up to 300 megawatts. And the reason that the SMRs are going to be so popular is because they have lower upfront costs, greater scalability, which means you can install a certain amount of power, and you can repeat it with different units and increase the capacity. It's got siting flexibility. It's different than large nuclear power plants, where you can site it in different locations, and it can be manufactured depending on the site. Actually, it can be custom tailored in a way. And as we mentioned, one of the pioneers in the SMRs is NuScale. US Department of Energy provided $400 million to NuScale for the support of accelerated development and design certification approval. And NuScale has received design certification approval from NRC, Nuclearelectrica Commission of the United States. Also, most of the vendors in the US are developing light water cooled SMRs, like NuScale, Holtec, Westinghouse, GE, Attache. And it's, as you mostly know, that light water reactors are proven technology. It's got 30 years of implementation. And the SMRs are built, factory built, and it can be delivered by truck on rail to the site in ready to install form, much different than large nuclear reactors. And and you can build it in a size that's required and then add additional capacity as needed. SMRs can be coupled with other energy sources like renewable energy and fossil energy if needed. And microreactors can be backup power in rural areas. So you can create microgrids in rural areas if needed with microreactors. And it can be used in emergency situations whenever needed because it's factory built and it can be deployed immediately. SMRs provide it doesn't require a large infrastructure. It can replace retired power plants if needed. And it requires less frequent fueling, 3 to 7 years, while the large nuclear power plants require 1 to 2 years of refueling. Actually, some new designs are going to require just 30 years of refueling. So it's a lower cost and faster to build, and it's off-site fabrication, and the assembly is quick. Construction cost is lower, and the duration of the implementation of SMRs are going to be much quicker. And simple design eliminates many of the large and complex systems, such as coolant pumps, external steam generators, and it's safer. Most SMRs to be built below ground, enhancing safety and security. Reactor operates using natural circulation. So in case of emergency, it shuts down safely and cools indefinitely with no operator action. No AC or DC power required. No additional water is required. And it can be used for thermal and electric power for desalination, hydrogen production, and other industrial applications. And one of the studies actually showed that in 2030, SMRs are going to have a market of $30 billion. So it's got a great future. That's all I'd like to say for now.
Thank you so much. And I'm really glad that you expanded on what makes SMRs different and better. So I, saved me one of the questions. That's fantastic. So for the next one, I have quite a few questions for y'all. So I'm going to ask you if you can keep your answers to about a minute each so I can get through all of them, because I also want to, Anna, come back to you in the end to talk about some of the lessons learned that you have for us as well, because I think that's going to be fascinating. But my question now has to do with, nuclear and geopolitical partnerships and kind of the connection there, because that was mentioned by several of you and also on the previous panel as well. As Europe moves away from reliance on Russian energy sources due to the horrific crimes that Russia is committing in Ukraine right now, they self-sanctioned gas exports to Europe, and of course there is kind of overall goal for Europe to reduce reliance, but probably not as fast as it's happening right now because Russia just stopped their exports outside of things going gas moving through Ukraine and gas moving through Turkey. So how about nuclear? So the natural gas has gone down from supplying 40% of Europe's gas demand to 9%, right? What a change. So how about nuclear supplies? What is the future of Russian nuclear supplies toward fuel for Europe? Are we seeing the same kind of appetite to de-risk that, to reduce reliance on that, or what are we seeing across Europe, and what will we see in the next couple of years? Are there conversations around sanctioning nuclear supplies from Russia, or no? Is that off the table? What are your thoughts? Andre, we're going to start with you, and like I said, if you can keep it to a minute or two, that'd be fantastic.
Olga, we have to rebuild the nuclear supply chain as a matter of priority, and this is a major area of focus for our investment in C5, is how we can make a contribution to help rebuild the nuclear supply chain, because some time ago, we lost our strategic focus on the importance of our nuclear supply chain. And as a result, Russia took a large part of the market share. And today we are too dependent on Russia for key components of the nuclear supply chain. So there's a great urgency to rebuild our nuclear supply chain so that nuclear can continue to not only contribute to economies, but also contribute towards energy security.
Thank you so much. And I don't know if you wanted to give this a really quick one-minute response.
You know, as a general comment, based on the discussion early on, I think it's wise to leave it to each country in terms of the energy mix, because some countries have wind, other countries do not have wind. Some countries have solar, others don't. As a general, so it's wise to leave it to the member states, from the Europe's point of view, to the member states to really look for that mix. Now, coming to your specific question, well, as I was hinting earlier, I think in our part of the world, it is a market that is for the North American technologies to grab it. If I have to speak from the Romanian point of view, I am very proud to say that as we were very wise and courageous in 1960 to go with the North American technology, imagine that now we are as wise and brave and courageous to go with the North American technology as well. And that's why we are aiming to be, and we are at the forefront of the SMR deployments in the EU, partnering with the New Scale, building the first of a kind, reactor in our region, in Romania. And if I would just say to you, and that according to our plan, it's it's going to be by 2028. And so practically we identified the potential site, we established the SPV, which will develop the project, and in the next period we will focus on the site characterization and licensing and pro-engineering work and so on and so forth. So on a personal view, be wise in choosing your long-term partners, and we've been very wise in choosing the North American technologies.
So it's a 100-year-old marriage, right? Partnership once you sign up. So
and energy, it's a strategic field. So be wise in choosing your strategic partners.
Yeah.
And I won't go with the Russians, to be blunt. We didn't go during the communist period. Imagine how we are not going to go now, So, but others should be wise, and that's why, as I was saying earlier, Romania doesn't have any dependence on the Russians on the nuclear. It was hinted earlier about the supply chain. I was telling in my exposure that during those 50 years of experience and 25 years of experience as operators, we developed the supply chain, including, internally. So I think it's a huge opportunity, including for the EU market, to develop that supply chain with a localized, component.
Thanks, Anna. And I love that you mentioned the time frame, because I think people get really excited when we talk about nuclear. And all right, well, how soon? How soon can we bring these things to life? And you mentioned 2028. Serdar, I want to come to you next and have your thoughts on some of the time frames and how quickly can some of these technologies be developed, implemented across the region. And then, do you see kind of things escalating as a couple of these projects come online, kind of everything speeding up once we get a couple of them under our belt?
Yeah, I think one of the hindering points is licensing is taking time. So first of all, it is design licensing and then implementation licensing. All of these are taking time. We expect that the earliest SMRs will be in market by 2026, but microreactors can be earlier. New Scale will deploy first unit in 2027 or 2028, either in the US or Romania. So there's GE, Attache, and Holtec applied for certification with US NRC. A number of US and Canadian SMR vendors have applied to the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission to obtain license because it's shorter and less expensive licensing in Canada. and elsewhere. In the US, NRC requires lots of documentation and lots of technical data. For that reason, some companies are going towards that way, but implementation will be in different countries once these are approved.
But
Quick
just
interjection.
to share with you from our experience, because it is important, the time. But let's go back. That's why it's wise to plan in advance. And those projects on the nuclear, but in any strategic projects, it needs time to, and a wise planning. But the fast deployment of SMRs in the region requires, from our perspective, a series of contributing factors. And if I may say, and you touched upon the licensing. So harmonized, accelerated licensing process by pooling the resources of states interested in the same technology. And here Romania could play an important role and could share our experience based on our partnership with NuScale. Preparation of the supply chain to deliver on time and on a budget the new technology. Here we need to look for the possibility to localize manufacturing in the region, serving the EU market. Training of workforce, don't lose sight of that. Training of the workforce for current and future projects. We are making rapid steps in Romania towards establishing a full scope SMR training simulator at one of our technical university to prepare the next generation of operators for our country as well as in the region. And from our experience, we saw a great deal of interest for NuScale SMR from a lot of countries in the region. And as I said, we are very, very happy to share with you our experience. Don't be shy to call up on us, on Romania, on Nuclearelectrica, because we stand ready and happy to share this experience, because as you were mentioning earlier, this is a great technology. And the SMRs can ensure a smooth transition towards a decarbonized industry sector in developing countries. And you are pledging all the advantages that a SMR can have by being just put in a very poor village or on a big industrial plant and so on and so forth. So the technical people could share on that. But practically, SMRs offer answers to some of the biggest challenges and concrete answers, because it's great to talk and talk and talk. The problem is that, and you know what, I always, when I was in office, I always said, you know what, if you come to me with problems, the door is there, okay, tell me the problem, but come immediately with the solution. And I think the solutions, the SMRs can offer answers and solutions, real concrete solutions to the problems and challenges that we are facing, and including developing countries. Decarbonization, cost, deployment on time, local community support, and those could be an additional source of providing exactly what you're saying, that affordable energy. Energy should not be a luxury. Energy, it's a basic service. And we should look, at what needs to be done in order to fulfill that duty that we have to our citizens.
Not taking it for granted. No, that's a really great point. Andre, we're going to go to you for a really fast intervention, and then Anna will come back to you for like 1 minute of lessons learned, because I know you want to do that, because I do want to go to our fantastic audience. I see some familiar faces, experts here. But Andre, do you have anything to add on the question on what Anna mentioned in terms of building capacity and building out that next workforce to make sure that there is enough, the talent pool is there to work across these technologies and bring them to life? And particularly partnering with countries like Ukraine that has tremendous, traditional kind of expertise in traditional nuclear technologies, and how do you build off of that for the next generation? I don't know if you had anything to add for the capacity building piece.
Yes, the capacity building piece is a critical key for the future, and I want to say congratulations to Anna and the team in Romania for everything that they are doing and how they are showcasing the potential of this innovation. Building the next generation of not only nuclear engineers, but also people who can help build and scale all of the nuclear industry across the supply chain is going to be a critical success factor. And at a time when many sectors and industries are retracting and having layoffs and redundancies, it's tremendous to see that we actually have a skills shortage across the nuclear sector, and in particular in the advanced nuclear sector. So there's tremendous potential here to scale and to grow talent. There's tremendous potential to harmonize regulation, to build a common and reliable supply chain for this industry. But also, as Anna outlined, to imagine all kinds of applications for this know-how and technology and innovation that can really be transformational for developing countries, from fast-growing cities to remote rural areas to science and innovation. Nuclear plays a very important role also not only in the field of science, but also in the medical field.
Yeah.
And so there are a whole range of applications here. And I think that the economic growth and development plan that Anna outlined around Romania's adoption of SMR technology, I think will be a textbook study for the future. And it's tremendous.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Anna, we're going to go to you. 30 seconds of lessons learned. I'm sorry to put the time pressure on you.
Thank you. So firstly, nuclear energy requires long-term strategic and commitment. And that needs to be taken into consideration, including from the communication point of view. In Romania, during all this period, it was a great support from all the political parties and, very importantly, from the population. So a lesson is don't lose sight of the importance of communication and the acceptance of the local population, local communities. A strong and independent regulator, that's another lesson, is important in ensuring compliance with the highest safety standards and non-proliferation treaties. Another one, mutual beneficial international partners are key, and here I want to take the opportunity to really say a huge thank you to our North American partners who over those years showed support. Now it's time for the financial institutions. You have the taxonomy there, we mentioned it. Another one is participation of the local industry in implementing the new technologies. And another one will be the legal and financial ecosystem. Because that's very, very important, including from the long-term point of view. And a competent project promoter, that's an important one, and we are very lucky in Romania to have Nuclearelectrica, who is now integrating all those projects, being an operator with a track record of excellent operation more than 25 years. And I'm not subjective. Again, are the standards and the reviews done by the experts. So practically to close up, nuclear needs to be placed in the center of our political and strategic discussions about security of supply and decarbonization, and the international community can play an important role in leading the way, framing the right message. And here again, a huge thank you to you and to Atlantic Council for again making, putting the nuclear where it should be. Not being the bow in the room, as I said, because the benefits from the nuclear are huge, including, I forgot about the medicine. Look at the benefits on the medical field and so on and so forth.
All right, well, it's at the top of the agenda this time, so really great. All right, so 15 seconds to ask your questions. Anna, go ahead.
My question is to all of you. First, honestly, fantastic, the policy in Romania. I mean, this is a trendsetter. But my question is linked to this idea that you have to bring talent and the importance of communication and the importance of public opinion. Linked to another issue that you have touched upon, which is safety and security. In France, and I'm repeating what EDF engineer told me, a welding needs 500 signatures. Putting a cable needs 25 signatures. Mr. Pitt has highlighted the idea of harmonizing. I think that without losing in safety and security, how do you see and how do you invest in startups when, frankly, right now, at least in Europe, I would like you to tell us about United States, there are this great to overcome these roadblocks.
Thank you so much. Who wants to take that first? Serdar, why don't you go ahead, and then we'll go to others to see if they have any room. comments, and we only have just a little bit of time left. So.
Well, I can say that, I mean, in case of SMRs especially, nuclear, probably the large nuclear power plants are not the main priority of the US government. It's the small modular reactors. And for that reason, US government has established a working group, SMR working group. And in this SMR working group, they have 34 US companies engaged in the nuclear field. And also US Department of State, US Department of Energy, US Department of Commerce, US TDA, US Exim Bank, they are all involved in the working group. And what they've done so far is they have actually established some cooperation with EU. And they have established, they have done several events together, and some of them are USTDA funded workshops, which were done in Ukraine, Romania, Bulgaria, and the next one will be conducted in Brussels in December. Yeah. And they have, in their establishment with the EU, they have been giving importance to the regulatory issues, financing, and also preparing standards for SMRs and codes. So for that reason, from the US side, I think they are really into the developing the SMR technologies and cooperating with other countries as much as possible.
Cooperation.
Just as I was saying in my earlier intervention, I think nuclear projects could be envisioned as projects of common interest between several interested countries in the EU and abroad, by pooling resources and to share the benefits.
Thank you. Andre, 10 to 15 seconds for the final comment, since we're out of time.
I think we're at a very exciting moment. I compared it to President Eisenhower's Athens for Peace speech when he opened up access to US nuclear innovation for the peaceful development of the global economy. And I think we're again at such a moment. We all have an important role to play to grasp the moment. Investors to make capital accessible, capacity building of young people and talent and job creation, harmonization of regulation, rebuilding our supply chain. But we have a very exciting moment to grasp, which can be transformative not only for the energy transition, but also for energy security and for poverty alleviation. And I'm delighted to see so many good partners in the room today.
Thank you so much, Andre. I think let's keep this conversation going during this coffee break that's coming up. And then once you come back, we have a treat for you, keynote remarks from Ambassador Morningstar, who will be joining us virtually. Ambassador Morningstar is the founding chairman of the Global Energy Center at Atlantic Council. So very much looking forward to what he has to say. And please don't forget to pick up your translation headset if you need one. So please join me in thanking our fabulous panelists. And thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you to you.